Hey traders, welcome back to the FX YouTube channel. I hope everyone is having a good weekend. In this video, I'll review the higher time frame price action, break that down into the lower time frames, and analyze the markets to give some ideas where price may want to go next week. Now that we start our first full week in September, I hope that we start to see some more liquidity come back into the markets. This is generally the time of the year I tend to trade much more consistently, and really hoping we can end the year with a bang. So let's get into the charts and analyze and look at where price may want to go next week. As always, starting with the fundamentals. To start off the week, we have a holiday in the US on Monday. On Tuesday we have PMI for the US, and then skipping to Thursday, we have a really big day. ECB will give its monetary policy statement, and interest rates are expected to rise. There will be a press conference following the release of the monetary statement, and then later that evening, Powell will be speaking. And just a quick note, there was a leak in the gas pipeline from Russia to Europe, stopping the flow of gas. Well, supposedly it was due to a leak. But now it appears that the true intent is Russia retaliating against the EU because of the support for Ukraine, as well as a recent plan to cap the price of oil exports from Russia. So there could be a strong influence from the fundamentals driving the markets this week, most of it favoring a very strong dollar. But ECB could have a strong impact towards the end of the week. So that was the fundamentals. Now let's move on to DXY. So for DXY, I'm gonna do something a little different. I'm gonna start with the yearly time frame. The reason why I wanted to start with the yearly time frame is that we are starting to come into yearly supply, but at the same time DXY is clearly bullish, and I'm not expecting any reversals for the time being. But if we start to see structure develop in the coming days, weeks, or even months, then there is a possibility that this supply level may hold and DXY reverses from here. But for the time being, I'm not expecting that. We just have to wait and see how price action develops from now on. And then if we go to the quarterly time frame, so you can clearly see DXY is really bullish. We can see that we had a supply zone on the quarterly time frame. So DXY has swept this supply zone, and as we can see from the recent price action, it could have been some sort of reaction off this supply to build liquidity to drive further to the upside. But once again, clearly bullish on this time frame. And then if we go to the monthly time frame, so I'm gonna bring this down a little more. So we can see that price came deep into supply. We had a huge reaction off of it. Then last month started to continue to the upside. We've only had a couple days in September so far, but the new candle has already broken supply. We have demand below here, but really no signs that we're going anywhere near it for the time being. We also have supply above, so we have a big supply range here that we're getting really close to reaching, and we also have a supply zone higher up. It appears that DXY is pushing up to reach those levels, so clearly bullish on the monthly time frame as well. And if we go to the weekly time frame, so once again, you can see all signs are to the upside. The last pullback tapped into weekly demand. There was a reaction from here, and DXY has drove up to break the highs again. So as we can see, DXY is clearly bullish, and just overall looks like it just wants to continue up from here. So let's have a look at the daily now. So on the daily, we can see price came down to the downside. It actually swept the previous demand zone that was created, had a strong reaction off of that, but eventually DXY built up enough liquidity to push to the upside and then break through the supply. So we came up to the supply, had another reaction, more liquidity building to push through and break, and then pulling back, building more liquidity for continuation to the upside. On the daily time frame, DXY is bullish, and the way I look at it, I mean, it just looks like it wants to continue to the upside. We had that break, clear break structure, one more pullback on Friday, coming back, retesting demand, and I mean, if I could take a guess, it just looks like it wants to continue up from here. And then let's have a look at the 4-hour time frame. So I've adjusted my path as the structure is a lot clearer now. Although it looked like in this area we're creating lower lows and lower highs, ultimately it ended up being just the creation of minor structure that completed the pullback to start the trend to the upside, which has been confirmed with consecutive higher highs, a higher low, and then another higher high. As price came down and tested once again demand, I could imagine DXY just continuing up from here and breaking the highs now, and probably continue as well. So as for my bias, I mean, going through all the time frames from as high as the yearly down to the 4-hour, it appears that we are fully aligned to continue to the upside. For the short term, I want to see the highs go at a minimum, but then later this week we do have the ECB monetary policy, which could give strength to the euro. Potentially this could be a catalyst for another pullback, but all in all, I mean, I think we can expect DXY to continue higher, and then we just need to watch the impact of the ECB monetary policy to see the reaction on the dollar, and see if DXY can still continue up after the ECB news, or starts to show any signs of reversal after. Okay, so that's it for DXY. Now let's have a look at EU. Gonna be starting with the weekly time frame for this video. So ever since we had that pullback, we swept the weekly imbalance. DXY has been really strong and really pushing EU down. The week before last, we broke. No, we had that strong push to the downside, and then the week after that, we broke the lows, and then this last week, we had an attempt to break them again, but at the same time, we did see a lot of bullish structure forming at the same time. So on the weekly, I mean, just looking at the way price action is forming, it looks like EU is bearish. Well, it's obviously bearish, but it appears that EU is starting to lose strength, and looks like it wants to continue down and break the lows again. If we go to the daily time frame, so as I was saying before, you can see that EU was pushing up. It was creating bullish structure, and really looked like it had some intent to continue to the upside. But then we had that huge, massive push to the downside, and then on Friday, you can see that we retested that supply zone that was created, and then came right back down. So when I see that, I mean, it just looks like this retest was just that, a retest, and now it looks like it wants to just continue and melt from here. So let's move on to the 4-hour time frame. So you can see a little clearly what I was talking about, how that bullish structure was being created, but then you can start to see in this area, we started to push up a little more correctively. Then we started to show some signs of weakness with this huge push to the downside. We had one last push up, but then after, once again, had a shift back to the downside. Then on Friday, we actually broke this demand. We swept it, came a little lower, structure held, and then on Friday we started to push up again. We came back into supply, and then after had a massive reaction with a really aggressive push to the downside. For now, we haven't broken the lows. We ended the week here, but my feeling when I look at the 4-hour, it looks like we may have a pullback or consolidate here, and then continue to the downside. So technically, EU is currently in a demand area, so there is a chance that we may have a reaction from here. But looking at the order flow and the way price action has developed over the last few days, at least when I look at it, it appears more likely to continue to the downside from here. As for my bias, technically, structurally, EU is still bullish on the 4-hour time frame, but that doesn't mean that I myself am bullish on EU right now. The key elements that have been building my bias for EU is DXY and the fundamentals, and both of them are telling me that DXY is going to continue to the upside, which should push EU further to the downside. One of the things that bothers me though is that euro has been relatively strong compared to the dollar and the other currencies. You can see it with, I mean, when you compare the charts between DXY and EU, DXY continues to break the highs, but EU continues to fail to break the lows. We also have fundamentals that should favor the euro, giving it more strength later this week with the ECB announcement. But if I had to take a guess, at least right now, if you ask yourself, where is the money? We have some money here, but we have a lot of money building up here. So you can clearly see the liquidity pool below this range that has been building up after all those attempts to push EU down. I feel like we're going to go down and break the lows, take all that liquidity early in the week. So I will mainly focus on pullbacks from this area to enter shorts. And then later in the week, I'll wait for the ECB monetary policy statement to see if the news is enough to trigger any signs of strength for EU and potential reversals. But for now, I'm not really thinking of any bullish scenarios until after the ECB news, and then reevaluate later in the week in case we start to see some signs of strength on EU. So anyways, that sums up this weekend's analysis. Hopefully you guys found it useful. I'd like to hear your thoughts on next week's price action. You can do that by leaving a comment below. Also, I'd mentioned it before, but if there's any other pairs you want me to analyze, let me know in the comment section below, and I may include them in the next weekly video. And as a final reminder, if you found value in this video, please be sure to click the like button and subscribe to ensure you don't miss any future videos. And please enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I wish you all a wonderful trading week next week, and looking forward to seeing you again for the next one on either Tuesday or Wednesday. Speak to you guys soon. Have a good one. Peace.
Hey, you made it to the very end. Thanks for that. If you could do me one more favor and click the like button and subscribe if you haven't already, it'll allow the YouTube algos to kick in and help this channel grow. Thanks again. Cheers.